That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation.
Let's take you to these live pictures of the Beirut skyline. Lebanon's capital has clearly been hit once again. Multiple strikes by Israeli forces in recent weeks, bombing Beirut's southern suburbs. The air attacks come after Israel announced on Monday that it was moving troops to the south of the country. Let's take a short break. We'll see you shortly.
The United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
This is the second time that we negotiated with Americans and they decided to attack us right in the middle of negotiation.
This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat.
Donald Trump has just launched America into a full-scale conflict without a plan, without authorization for Congress, or even a debate in full view of the American people.
With tensions escalating, stay with Al Jazeera for the latest developments.
As the war on Iran widens, its impact is spreading beyond the battlefield. Shockwaves are hitting global energy markets as facilities are damaged, supply routes disrupted, and risks to vital shipping lanes grow. Stay with Al Jazeera for continued coverage and expert analysis.
We saw this exact same pattern happen in Gaza, the same lazy, flattened reporting that we saw in Gaza when it comes to the war on Iran.
The Listening Post decodes the media on Al Jazeera.
Hello, I'm Neve Barker, live from Doha. You're watching Al Jazeera's extensive coverage of the war between the US, Israel and Iran. Israel says it's killed 2 senior Iranian security officials. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says their deaths give Iranians a chance to remove their leaders. The Navy warship, the USS Tripoli, is said to be on its way to the Middle East, believed to be carrying ground troops. Israel carries out more attacks on Lebanon hours after European leaders call for de-escalation. And in other news, Afghanistan blames Pakistan for an airstrike in its capital, Kabul, that's killed at least 400 people. Good to have you. Israel has announced that Iran's security chief has been killed, but Tehran hasn't confirmed this. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz says Ali Larijani was killed in a strike on Tehran. Well, in another development, the Israeli military also says the commander of Iran's internal security unit, Golan Reza Soleimani, was killed in a strike. Also, there's been no comment on that either from Iran. The Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz confirmed the killing of Larijani and Soleimani. Well, Israel's Prime Minister has been speaking about the strikes on Iran's leadership. Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel is shaking the foundations of the regime.
This morning, we eliminated Ali Larijani. Ali Larijani is the boss of the Revolutionary Guards, which is a gang of gangsters that in practice runs Iran. Alongside him, we also eliminated the commander of the Basij, the helpers of the gangsters, who spread terror in the streets of Tehran and other Iranian cities against the population.
Ali Larijani has been a central figure in Iranian politics for decades. He's been Iran's security chief, appointed as Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council in August last year. His family has been influential in Iranian politics for decades. Larijani joined the Iranian Revolutionary Guards in the early 1980s and later held several roles, including Speaker of Parliament. In 2005, Larijani ran for president, but he was unsuccessful. Well, he has been considered a balancing figure in Iranian politics, but after the US-Israeli airstrikes killed Iran's supreme leader, He issued a strongly worded message saying the attacks had set the heart of the Iranian nation ablaze and that Iran would burn its enemies' hearts. We're covering developments from Ramallah and Tehran, first to Tawhid Asadi in the Iranian capital. So, Tawhid, we are, of course, still waiting for official confirmation from the Iranian side on these two apparent assassinations. What are you hearing?
Yes, we are. Until now, first things first, we don't have any official confirmation from Tehran about the actually assassination of Ali Larijani, the Supreme National Security Council secretary, as well as the head of or the commander of Basij militia. Still, we are waiting for it. And this is quite similar to what happened when the assassination of Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, took place. For hours, Iran kept on not confirming it, but just denying these reports. This time, Tehran has not come out with any denial, and that is sort of intensifying the possibility for the reports to be true. But still, if confirmed, it's going to be a major blow for the Iranian political establishment, seeing the very significant role of this character. We know that this is not a marginal player when it comes to Iran's political establishment. He acts like a bridge between the security apparatus, the military segment, as well as the political establishment of the country. And of course, this is not the first blow over the past 2-3 weeks after the assassination of the Supreme Leader. Now there is this long list of military commanders, including the head of IRGC, the commander of IRGC, as well as the chief of the staff for armed forces, as well as the defense minister, and many others who have been killed as a result of these airstrikes by the Americans and Israelis. But speaking of the significance of Ali Larijani, we have to keep in mind that strategically speaking, he is the person responsible for many decisions to be made, specifically after the assassination of the Supreme Leader. And he had this long list of different positions from the very early days of the Islamic Revolution. He was a member of the Revolutionary Guards. He was a former, actually, deputy minister for labor. He was a minister for culture. He was the head of state TV. He was also a speaker of the parliament, indeed, for more than a decade. And that creates a very specific character when it comes to Ali Larijani. Now, it's not going to be an easy task for Iran to find a replacement for this specific character. Meanwhile, we are aware that we are dealing with a very intricate dynamism when it comes to Iran's domestic political establishment.
Okay, let's hear from Noor Uda now, who's live from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Noor, Benjamin Netanyahu is speaking, confirming these killings, and also suggesting that there are more operations to come.
That's right, Neve. I mean, the Israeli Prime Minister is being very consistent that this assassination, a political assassination, no doubt, will advance Israel's goal of not just toppling the government in Tehran, but really crushing the entire system. Benjamin Netanyahu has made it very clear his intent, his objective is for the Islamic Republic of Iran to no longer exist, for an Israel-friendly Iran to take its place. And so these assassinations play a central role. He believes, at least as far as his base is concerned, this is a big win that he needed to tout and celebrate in that video.
Let's go back to Tawhid Asadi. And Tawhid, we know the other individual who was killed, Gholam Reza Soleimani, the Basij commander, was responsible for internal security. We are, as you've said very clearly, still awaiting official confirmation of their deaths. But have there been any reports, though, of any reinforcements of checkpoints, of any change of tactics, any noticeable response on the ground, or is it too early to say?
It's a little bit early, but still we are aware that this is not just the foreign strikes, foreign assaults that are just targeting the Iranian territories, but the political establishment is also worried about the potentiality of a domestic chaos. Seeing the very fact that back in December we witnessed a massive protest taking place across the country, first and foremost driven by the economic demands. Later on we heard political and social demands added to this actually demonstration, and of course seeing the sort of public dissatisfaction that is out there when it comes to at least a segment of the Iranian society. Now there is this concern among the politicians that in case of a destabilized scenario, domestic chaos is going to be another scenario that could be taken into consideration very seriously. Speaking of the checkpoints, we know that over the past few days we have been receiving reports about these checkpoints being targeted by the drones of the Israelis, and that is creating the exigency for a sort of shift. And we have to also keep in mind that that is added to the major blow that the country has faced, seeing that this is not just the big military headquarters, but also very smaller police stations have been also targeted, and now there is a risk whether or not the establishment could make sure that the security of the country, domestically speaking, is guaranteed while the airstrikes continue across the country, specifically in the capital from early hours of today, from the midnight, I may say, we heard the sounds and the after sounds of multiple massive blasts, and it goes the same when it comes to other cities. So there is now a sort of mixed concern, domestically speaking, of course, when it comes to the airstrikes coming from the Israelis and Americans.
Okay, well, as you can imagine, the Israeli leadership are hailing this moment as an operational triumph. Here's how the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, confirmed the killing of both Larijani and Soleimani.
I've just been updated by the Chief of Staff that the Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, Larijani, and the head of the Basij, Iran's central repression apparatus, who is responsible for the massacre of the protesters, were eliminated last night and have joined the head of the annihilation program, Khamenei, along with all those eliminated from the axis of evil in the depths of hell.
No, clearly the leadership in Israel is very keen to show the lengths that they've gone to carry out these assassinations. I mean, what does this operation say about the extent of Israeli intelligence and the degree in which the Israeli state has essentially penetrated into the corners of Iranian security right now?
Well, Niamh, this is an important part of Israel's brand as a military superpower in the region. And this is something that Netanyahu keeps talking about, that this war, what Israel is doing in this war is putting it on par with global superpowers. And those are his words, not mine. Now, the surveillance, the Israel's ability to hack into telecommunication systems, to carry out surveillance, to penetrate all the defenses is notorious. It does have a specialty, if you will, in terms of publicly assassinating its adversaries. This is a new level of that capability, and one that Israel is keen to tout for its base in the right wing in Israel, but also for those vying to buy that technology. And those companies have made tens of billions of dollars over the past 2.5, 3 years. Now, it's not clear how Israel is doing that, how Israel is penetrating all those defenses, how it is able to find out where all of these leaders are. We don't know the specifics. We don't know. We don't have confirmation, as Tawhid was saying, if those assassinations were successful, and we don't know the circumstances. Was he in a bunker? Was he in an apartment? Was he in a public place? Those things would probably shed some light on how exactly Israel was able to get him. But we do know that, at least as far as Israeli sources are concerned, there was an attempt to assassinate Ali Larijani on Monday. That was called off, possibly because of intelligence, and then the assassination, according to Israel, went ahead successfully, and the confirmation was announced today.
Okay, many thanks to both of you, Nouruddin Ramallah in the occupied West Bank and Tawhid Asadi in Tehran. Well, I'm now joined by Wolfgang Pusztai. He's an independent security analyst and former defense attaché for Austria. He joins us from Vienna. And Ross Harrison, a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute and author of Decoding Iran's Foreign Policy. He's joining me here in the studio. As we have been reporting, let's give you some information first before we go to the interview. The Israeli military says Gholam Reza Soleimani, the commander of Iran's internal security unit, has also been killed in a strike. So who is he? Let's give you some more information. He has been Iran's top security official, serving as the head of its internal security force known as the Basij since 2019. He joined the Revolutionary Guards in 1982 and has been a veteran of the war with Iraq. Soleimani was sanctioned by the United States, the European Union and other countries for his suspected role in suppressing dissent in Iran. He's held a degree in history and was reportedly born in 1965. That's according to records by the US Treasury. All right, straight to our guest then, Ross Harrison and Wolfgang Pusztai, who I introduced a short while ago. Well, welcome back to both of you. Firstly, to you, Ross, could you put these killings into perspective for us? Because Iran's leadership has essentially suffered another major decapitation. I mean, Larijani was often seen as the bridge between the old clerical guards and a more kind of pragmatic form of leadership and bureaucracy, particularly because of his role in international diplomacy. How are you reflecting on this moment?
No, I mean, it's a significant moment. He was both the head of the Speaker of the Majlis earlier, and is just recently the head of the Supreme National Security Council. So he's a significant personage and particularly in the last number of months since the June war, as Ali Khamenei, the former supreme leader, was sort of in hiding for a certain period of time. Ali Larijani rose. So his star rose, and it rose his ability to manage through the current war and his ability to manage diplomatically after this conflict, I think Iran's ability to do that has been dealt a blow.
Turning to you, Wolfgang, particularly on the Basij commander, Gholam Reza Soleimani. I mean, he is the man responsible for internal security. What does it say about this catastrophic blind spot when it comes to Iran and its leadership's ability to look after its chain of command?
Israel has certainly deeply penetrated Iran's state security system and the whole state. And they are using this for their decapitation strikes on day one and for the continuation of these decapitation strikes. But maybe even more important for the situation on the ground, the Israelis and the Americans are now in phase 3 of their campaign. This means they are particularly after the ground forces of the security elements. This means they are after the commanders, the medium and lower level commanders of the Basiji, of the Revolutionary Guards and the others. And this is certainly something that must be very worrying for the Basiji and the other security forces. And this is something which might encourage the Iranians a little bit more to take their destiny into their own hands. But I doubt that this will be the case anytime soon.
Maybe not anytime soon. Ross, putting that to you, is it wishful thinking on behalf of Benjamin Netanyahu to just assume that with these latest assassinations that the people of Iran who are against the leadership will rise up?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Iranians, as much as they may be against the current regime, are very nationalistic. And they will interpret this assassination and killing in the context of the entire war. So whether they will be mourning him per se, or whether they will be mourning the fact that their country has been penetrated by Israel and by the United States, that remains to be seen. But a very nationalistic population, the notion that somehow the U.S. or Israel will be greeted as liberators and see this as a positive, this whole series of events as a positive turn of events, it's unlikely, at least in the near to midterm medium future.
Wolfgang, judging by everything that we have seen so far in this conflict by way of escalation upon escalation, given another serious decapitation of significant figures within the Iranian leadership, what are you anticipating the Iranian response to be now?
Well, I'm not so sure that the Iranians are not welcoming the killing of the Basiji leaders and the Larijani. This depends on about who we are talking about. The Iranian population is not a very homogeneous one. We must keep in mind that about 1 month ago, 10,000 of Iranians were killed, were murdered by the regime. I doubt that the families of those, I doubt that the people where they are coming from, that they are really mourning about the death of these two leaders. Where are we heading right now? I would say the strategy of Iran will continue with what probably Larijani developed. This means to continue a war of attrition, to continue, even if it's just a few missiles strikes on Israel, to show to the Israelis, to show to the world that they are still capable of offensive operations. And they will also continue their drone attacks on the Arab Gulf states. I would say they will continue with these attacks as long as they need not to pay for it.
Well, on that point, I mean, it does beg the question how much discomfort, particularly the Gulf region, can take as a result of the actions taken by Israel. I wonder how the United States navigates all of this at the moment. It's desperate for extra support from allies to help with the Strait of Hormuz. They are clearly reluctant to get involved in what is seen as a war of choice by the Americans. And now, of course, the Israelis going forward with a strategy of hitting more and more and more senior command. What is the sentiment in the United States at the moment? How does it negotiate and navigate these twists and turns before it?
Well, I don't think the leadership really knows at this point in time. I mean, the expertise that could have either possibly prevented this war or helped the United States navigate an off-ramp, that leadership and that expertise has been sidelined within this administration. So how they're interpreting this series of events and how it affects the U.S. Gulf Arab state partners, we really don't know. I can tell you that if we were looking for some kind of an off-ramp, if we were assuming that eventually the Iranians would look for some kind of a cessation of hostilities, this pushes that way back because the Iranians are determined to do two things. One is survive, show the world that this regime will survive, and number two, to recreate deterrence. And this series of events, as tactically smart as it may have been from the Israeli perspective, certainly sets back the likelihood of any kind of cessation of hostilities in the near future.
Wolfgang, if the Iranian leadership's sole strategy right now is based around survival, they must be looking at this reluctance from NATO partners to help the Americans as being something of a win for them. I mean, the idea of a coalition of one is what's essentially ahead of the United States right now in the region, no?
Well, I would say the situation is not about emotions. This is not about emotions. This is about interests. This is about the interests of states and of continents. The Europeans need to know, is it in their interest to be more active in the Gulf region without joining the war? There are several options that they might support the defense of the Arab Gulf states, for example, that they might strengthen the defense against the drones, that they might help in demining in the Strait of Hormuz and other issues. So my recommendation to the Europeans would be not to think about what kind of differences you had with the American presidents before and what you think is your emotional best solution, but to think about your interests. It's all about interests. And this is the same for the Europeans as for the Arab states.
All right, well, Wolfgang Pusztai, former Austrian security attaché, military attaché and security analyst, and Ross Harrison from the Middle East Institute. A pleasure to both of you. Thank you. In the United States, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center has resigned, saying he cannot, in good conscience, support the Trump administration's war in Iran. Joe Kent made the announcement on social media, claiming Iran posed no imminent threat to the United States. He also alleged the conflict was driven by pressure from Israel and what he called a powerful pro-Israel lobby in Washington. The Senate confirmed him in the role last July in a narrow vote of 52 to 44. Mike Hanno is live for us at the White House. So, Mike, a resignation coming at a particularly awkward time for the US president. Talk us through its significance.
Yes, indeed. Well, as director of the Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent has played a fundamental role in terms of defining the intelligence by which President Trump decided to go to war. He's now saying that he believes that an echo chamber was created by Israel, giving President Trump false information, which led to him getting the U.S. involved in this war. Now, Joe Kent is no ordinary director, no ordinary bureaucrat. He's a much decorated special forces operative who has been on the ground in many areas. So he is somebody who's speaking with a great degree of knowledge. And in addition to that, his wife, Shannon, was also a special forces operative. She was killed in 2019 in a suicide bomb in Syria at the time. He mentions in his resignation letter the fact that he lost a loved one in war, reminds him of how others may be losing loved ones in this current war being waged by President Trump. Now, the significance of this, too, is what he is doing is echoing what many within MAGA, President Trump's support base, have been saying about this war. Their criticism is that President Trump pledged not to get the loss of U.S. soldiers' lives in another war in another country. But his critics contend, including his former now director of counterintelligence, that that is exactly what he is doing.
Mike, we may not have an answer on this yet, but I wonder if you could help us with this. The killing, of course, of Ali Larijani and Ghulam Reza Soleimani. I mean, can the US administration confirm at this stage that this was solely an Israeli operation, or is there any kind of indication that perhaps US intelligence or any kind of support was offered here?
No, none whatsoever. I can't answer that question because there has been no formal response from the US administration to the reports of Larijani's killings. However, it would be critically important for the administration, given that Ali Larijani was the absolutely central figure in terms of the negotiations that happened directly or indirectly with the US, and he has been conducting these negotiations for his entire career. So it could be a blow to any desire the administration may have to seek some negotiated end to this conflict.
Yeah, very good point. Mike, many thanks. Mike Hanna at the White House there. The Pentagon is sending more warships and troops to the Middle East. That's according to US media reports. The amphibious assault ship, the USS Tripoli, is now heading to the region along with Marines. It was stationed in Japan. The deployment's meant to reinforce US troops already in the Middle East. The build-up follows a request from US Central Command, or CENTCOM, which oversees American military operations in the region. Journalist Imzaman Rashid reports from the Strait of Hormuz.
We saw, even prior to this conflict starting, the huge buildup of US military assets in this region, and we've seen them in full force as well, particularly from the Gulf, firing into Iran and into Iranian territory. Well, this particular vessel brings along with it around 5,000 or so Marines, and there are some analysts suggesting that this could be used in some form of ground invasion in the Strait of Hormuz. Behind me, I'm just at the very entrance of the Strait of Hormuz, where, of course, there haven't been many ships passing through these waters. But this particular vessel, the USS Tripoli, could be used as some form of ground invasion to take back control of these waters. Donald Trump has suggested trying to build together some form of group of countries that can actually send warships out to these waters to essentially fight here, essentially to gain access of these waters, but also to escort some of these hundreds and hundreds of vessels that are currently anchored down in the area around the entrance to the Strait of Hormuz to actually try and get them through safely. Today, the International Maritime Organization has said that it's very unlikely that there will be a safe operation of escorting ships through. It's also not a sustainable and viable option in the long term, given that they would only essentially be taking a few ships through at each time. So not only could Iran potentially target the USS vessels, the other vessels from different countries, they would also be striking seafarers who have been out there stranded essentially in one place.
James Dorsey is an adjunct senior fellow at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies in Singapore. He says although minesweepers could be important for protecting shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, they're not the only line of defense.
They're essential if the Strait of Hormuz is mined. I don't know that we know that with independently confirmed with certainty. One could argue that the Iranians do not have an interest in mining the strait. First of all, that would contradict their claim that the strait is open to all except for some who are its adversaries and their allies. With other words, the United States and Israel and their allies. But also, it would controvert its ability or complicate its ability to allow ships, as it has done already, Chinese flagged vessels, Turkish flagged vessels, Indian flagged vessels, to safely traverse the the waterway. So I would take at this point, be cautious whether or not you really need minesweepers at this point. If I think much more you need other defenses against drones, against the fast speedboats, and against missiles.
The US is facing growing isolation of its plan to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran effectively blocked the key shipping route after the US and Israel launched a military offensive on Tehran. So far, President Donald Trump's call for allies to ensure the safe passage of vessels has gone unanswered. Trump has criticized allies for failing to support Washington. A fifth of the world's crude oil and liquefied natural gas normally passes through that vital shipping lane.
We have 45,000 troops in Japan. We have 45,000 troops in South Korea. We have 45,000, 50,000 troops in Germany. We defend all these countries. And then, do you have any minesweepers? And they say, well, would it be possible for us not to get involved? We spend trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO to defend other countries. And I always said, but if it ever comes time to defend us, they're not going to be there.
Well, the Philippines has begun distributing an $85 fuel subsidy to public transport drivers. It comes days before President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is expected to suspend excise taxes on oil products. The country imports nearly all of its fuel supplies and has been hit hard by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Prices have doubled since the Iran war. Barnaby Lowe has more from Manila.
More than 2 weeks into the conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran, fuel prices in the Philippines are skyrocketing. The price of diesel in particular has doubled. That's consequential because jeepneys, the minibuses that are the backbone of public transport here, run on diesel, and drivers, not just of jeepneys, but tricycles and taxis, have had to absorb the additional costs.
I used to make $13 in a day. Now it's down to around $2.50. The money for my family is now spent on fuel.
It's why the government has prioritized assistance for them. These tricycle drivers are among the first to receive an $85 fuel subsidy. Other public transport workers will have their turn in the coming days and weeks, officials have assured. $500 million has been earmarked for this program, and more financial aid is in the pipeline.
If prices keep going up, the subsidy won't be enough, but it will help one way or another.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is also expected to reduce or suspend excise taxes on fuel, but the country's energy minister says that may not help much, given the local oil industry is deregulated, meaning the government has no control over pricing and the Philippines' near complete reliance on imported oil.
Whether it's 2 pesos of excise or 4 pesos or even 6 pesos for excise tax, it's not as big of an impact compared to what is the jump already.
So by helping drivers, the hope is to also